Why do some people completely collapse under the pressure of daily life, while others build empires from the exact same starting point? It isn't about intelligence or talent. It comes down to a set of inescapable constraints that you are colliding with right now, whether you realize it or not. Let's look at the data behind the invisible filter controlling your reality.
Early 20th century psychologist Alfred Adler based his work on a specific observation. Human beings never interact directly with objective reality. Instead, we process the world through an invisible filter. We assign a highly subjective meaning to everything we encounter, and we live our lives exclusively within that customized interpretation. This personalized meaning of life operates beneath the surface, but it is deeply visible. Anyone paying attention can decode a person's exact worldview simply by watching their daily habits, their physical posture, and even their resting facial expressions. Adler observed that many people operate on what he called a false interpretation. This is an extractive mindset, driven by a pursuit of personal superiority, measuring the world only by what can be taken from it. When we look at the demographics of failure, from the career criminal to the chronic addict, Adler identifies a shared breaking point.
Think about a person in your life who constantly plays the victim. They act as if the world is out to get them, isolating themselves and refusing to cooperate. Adler's data shows us this isn't just a toxic personality trait. It is a fundamental misinterpretation of what it means to survive. They are failing to engage with the three permanent walls of human existence. Let's break down exactly what happens when someone hits the first wall.
These individuals struggle because they lack fellowship. They have reached a state where they no longer believe their problems can be solved through cooperation. A life built strictly for oneself offers nothing to the collective welfare. Because a completely private interpretation of reality provides zero social utility, it is to the rest of the world functionally meaningless. The physical world aggressively rejects this completely isolated mindset, simply because human existence is a multiplayer game. Every single person born onto this planet is immediately bound by three permanent physical constraints. Adler called these the three life tasks. You cannot achieve long-term survival while hiding inside a private, self-centered reality. Eventually, you are forced to collide with these three specific walls. Looking at this diagram, the first wall boxing us in represents our physical limits on this planet. Adler defined this first constraint as occupation. We are tied to the crust of the earth. To secure basic survival, we have to extract resources, build shelter, and continually train our bodies and minds to do the necessary labor. The second wall of our closed system is social fellowship. We live surrounded by other humans, and biological isolation is lethal in the wild. Our individual welfare is strictly tethered to our ability to connect with a group.
This brings us to a fascinating contradiction in human behavior. Why do people feel intensely lonely even when they are surrounded by a massive crowd? Adler's data points to a harsh truth. Loneliness isn't the absence of people, it is the refusal to contribute to them. When we hit this second inescapable wall, the social wall, we are forced to realize that our individual survival is completely dependent on the fellowship of others. Let's look at what happens to the brain when we treat relationships as transactions instead of partnerships.
Final boundary locking the system is love and marriage. Humanity exists as a two-sex species. The continuation of our entire biological line relies on intimate partnership and raising the next generation. People operating on a self-centered worldview look at these three absolute constraints and see them as unfair burdens. They try to dodge them entirely or exploit them purely for personal gain. But if you observe people who navigate these hurdles effectively, they approach them differently. They intuitively realize that their daily, individual choices must align with the wider welfare of humanity. These three tasks form a closed system. By their very nature, they are structured so that they cannot be resolved by an individual in isolation. They require an active mechanism of human connection. Adler named this active mechanism social interest. He determined it was the only viable tool humans possess to successfully navigate these three constraints. Cooperation is not a moral platitude or a philosophical ideal. It is the most practical means we have for managing daily survival. Without it, the outcome is bleak. Those who lack fellowship and refuse to contribute simply cannot sustain themselves against the weight of the three tasks. Adler was remarkably blunt about this. He stated that those who refuse to contribute eventually vanish without a trace. It is as if the earth itself assesses them, declares them useless, and sweeps them away. Therefore, if someone is chronically failing against these three constraints, it suggests their core operating system is fundamentally uncooperative. This raises a difficult question. If cooperation is a logical requirement for survival, why do so many people lack it? The answer lies in how quickly we write our internal code. A person's overarching interpretation of life is locked in extremely early, often solidified by the time they are 4 or 5 years old.
And here is where most people completely shatter. The third constraint: intimate partnerships. You have likely watched someone self-sabotage a perfectly healthy relationship and wondered, why did they do that? Clinically speaking, it's a defense mechanism. True intimacy requires absolute equality, and if someone secretly believes they are inferior, they will destroy the relationship before they allow themselves to be exposed. Here is how Adler mapped out this exact mechanism of self-destruction.
As this timeline illustrates, there are 3 specific early environments that consistently push a child into a flawed, single-player blueprint. The first path involves severe physical limitations or illness in childhood. A child dealing with these defects often becomes hyper-focused on their own limitations, missing the chance to learn how to interact with the broader group. The second path belongs to the pampered child. They are trained to expect others to solve every problem for them. They view mutual cooperation as an unfair burden, preferring to demand attention while others do the work. The final path happens to the neglected child. Raised without basic support, they view the adult world as a cold, hostile place. They simply never learn what love or mutual trust actually look like. When a person carries one of these uncooperative childhood blueprints into adulthood and hits the 3 life tasks, failure becomes a structural inevitability. Adler believed the true meaning of life is found in contribution. A valid meaning is one that possesses universal utility. It can be shared and readily accepted by the people around you. Fixing a failing lifestyle requires an intensive psychological remedy. You have to trace your current habits all the way back to those early childhood environments to uncover where your initial assumptions went wrong. Achieving stability demands a highly conscious effort to unlearn the instinct to extract value from others. The path forward requires retraining the mind to face the 3 constraints with courage. By adopting social interest, you align yourself with the primary mechanism of human survival: cooperation.
But understanding that cooperation is necessary is completely different from actually being able to achieve it. What happens when your brain is so deeply wired for failure that you cannot engage with these 3 life tasks? That psychological collapse is known as the inferiority complex. Click here to look at the clinical data on how it forms and how to rewrite it.